The question hung in the air between them, 5 simple words that made time stand still. "Is this your daughter's drawing?" Sarah asked, holding the colorful crayon masterpiece that had been taped to his refrigerator. In that moment, everything Marcus had carefully compartmentalized about his life, single father, struggling employee, man with dreams on hold, suddenly collided with the professional wall he'd built around his heart. What happened next would change both their lives forever. If you're touched by this story of unexpected connection and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more life-changing moments that remind us how quickly everything can transform when we least expect it. Marcus Jenkins checked his watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. The company holiday party had officially ended an hour ago, but as the newest junior account manager at Westfield Marketing, he couldn't exactly leave while the CEO was still making rounds. Especially not when that CEO was his direct supervisor, Sarah Westfield. He sipped his club soda, watching as Sarah laughed too loudly at something the creative director said. Her normally perfect posture had softened, and she kept touching people's arms when she spoke, telltale signs that the normally composed executive had indulged in one too many glasses of champagne. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Mrs. Abernathy, his elderly neighbor who watched his 6-year-old daughter Lily after school. "Sorry to bother you, dear. My arthritis is acting up something terrible. How much longer do you think you'll be?" Marcus felt the familiar weight of guilt settle in his chest. Since his wife Dana's death 3 years ago, he'd become an expert at disappointing people, his daughter most of all. "Leaving soon," he texted back. "So sorry." He pocketed his phone and scanned the room. Most of his colleagues had already left, and the remaining few were gathering their coats. Sarah, however, was now sitting alone at the bar, staring into her glass with an intensity that suggested she was either contemplating the meaning of life or trying very hard not to fall off her stool. Marcus hesitated. He should just slip out. Sarah Westfield was notorious for maintaining professional boundaries. In the 8 months he'd worked at Westfield, he'd never seen her so much as share a personal detail about her life outside the office. The woman who had built a 7-figure marketing agency from scratch and who regularly reduced grown men to stammering messes in meetings would certainly not appreciate her newest employee witnessing her in this state. But as he watched, she stood up abruptly, swayed dangerously, and grabbed the bar for support. "Damn it," Marcus muttered, setting down his glass and crossing the room. "Ms. Westfield? Are you all right?" She looked up at him, her eyes slightly unfocused. "Marcus. My rising star." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm perfectly fine. Just celebrating another successful year." "That's great," he said carefully. "I was actually heading out. Would you like me to call you a car?" Sarah waved her hand dismissively, nearly losing her balance again. "Already did. Should be here any minute." "Great. I'll just wait with you until it arrives." 10 minutes later, Marcus stood on the curb outside the hotel, supporting more of Sarah's weight than he cared to admit as the bitter December wind cut through his thin suit jacket. His phone buzzed again, but he couldn't reach it without risking Sarah toppling over. "Your car should be here by now," he said, scanning the street. Sarah fumbled with her phone, squinting at the screen. "Cancelled," she said, sounding suddenly very tired. "Driver got stuck in an accident on the highway." Marcus checked his watch again. It was nearly midnight. Mrs. Abernathy would be in pain, and Lily would have fallen asleep waiting for him to come home and read her bedtime story. Again. "I can drive you home," he heard himself say, immediately regretting the words. Sarah looked up at him, her professional mask slipping just enough to reveal genuine surprise. "You don't have to do that." "It's no problem," he lied. "My car's just in the parking garage." 20 minutes later, Marcus was navigating through the quiet streets of the city's most exclusive neighborhood, following Sarah's occasionally slurred directions. The interior of his 10-year-old Honda Civic, with its cheerful collection of Lily's toys and the lingering scent of the chicken nuggets they'd had for dinner the night before, felt suddenly shabby compared to the elegant woman in the passenger seat. "Turn left at the next light," Sarah said, her voice clearer now. The cold air seemed to have sobered her somewhat. Marcus nodded, acutely aware of the awkward silence between them. In the office, Sarah was known for her rapid-fire questions and incisive comments. Now, she stared out the window, lost in thoughts he couldn't begin to guess. "Nice neighborhood," he offered lamely as they passed another sprawling mansion. "It's quiet," she replied. Then, after a pause, "You have a child." It wasn't a question. Marcus glanced at the booster seat in his rearview mirror and the small purple backpack on the floor behind him. "Yes. A daughter. Lily. She's 6. Sarah nodded but didn't ask anything else. They drove in silence for another few minutes until she pointed to a modern glass and steel structure set back from the road. "This is me." Marcus pulled into the circular driveway, impressed despite himself. The house was stunning, all clean lines and dramatic lighting, exactly what he would have expected from someone with Sarah's exacting taste. He put the car in park. "Do you need help getting inside?" Sarah reached for the door handle but paused. "Actually, yes. If you don't mind." Marcus helped her up the walkway, her heels clicking unsteadily on the stone path. At the front door, she fumbled with her keys, dropping them twice before Marcus gently took them from her hand. "Which one?" he asked. "The silver one with the square top." He unlocked the door and helped her inside, flipping on lights as they entered a minimalist foyer that opened into a vast living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "The kitchen is through there," Sarah said, pointing. "Could you get me some water?" Marcus nodded and found his way to a gleaming kitchen that looked like it had never been used. He filled a glass from the filtered tap and returned to find Sarah sitting on a sleek white sofa, her shoes off and her head in her hands. "Here you go," he said, setting the water on the glass coffee table. "Thank you." She took a long sip, then looked up at him with clearer eyes. "I'm sorry about this. I don't usually." "It's fine," Marcus assured her. "Holiday parties get the best of everyone." She smiled faintly. "Not me. Never me." She set the glass down with deliberate care. "You can go now." "I'm fine." Marcus hesitated. She didn't look fine. "Are you sure? Is there someone I should call?" A flash of something, vulnerability, perhaps, crossed her face before she shook her head. "No. There's no one." The simple statement hung in the air between them, unexpectedly heavy. "All right then," Marcus said. "I'll see you on Monday." He was almost to the door when her voice stopped him. "Marcus? Why did you help me tonight?" He turned back, surprised by the question. "Because you needed help." She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to solve a particularly challenging puzzle. "Most people at the company are afraid of me." "I'm not afraid of you, Ms. Westfield. I respect you." She nodded slowly. "Good night, Marcus. Drive safely." "Good night." It was nearly 1 in the morning when Marcus finally pulled into his apartment complex. The modest 2-bedroom unit was all he could afford in a decent school district on his salary, even with the raise he'd received when joining Westfield Marketing. He quietly let himself in, finding Mrs. Abernathy dozing in his recliner. The elderly woman startled awake at the sound of the door. "I'm so sorry," Marcus whispered, helping her to her feet. "There was an emergency at work." Mrs. Abernathy patted his arm. "It's all right, dear. Lily was an angel as always. She fell asleep around 9, waiting for you to read to her." The guilt twisted in Marcus's stomach. "How's your arthritis?" "Oh, don't you worry about that. Nothing a hot water bottle won't fix." Marcus insisted on walking her back to her apartment down the hall, then returned to check on Lily. He crept into her small bedroom, smiling at the glow-in-the-dark stars they'd stuck to the ceiling together. Lily lay curled around her favorite stuffed elephant, her dark curls, so like her mother's, spread across the pillow. He gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, his heart aching with love and regret. "I'm sorry, Lilipad," he whispered. "Daddy's trying his best." After changing into sweatpants and a t-shirt, Marcus collapsed onto the couch, too tired to make it to his own bed. His mind drifted to Sarah Westfield, so different in her vulnerable state than the powerhouse who commanded the office. "There's no one," she'd said, and something in her voice had resonated with the loneliness he carried inside himself. He fell asleep thinking about glass houses and the people who lived in them, alone. The insistent ringing of his doorbell woke Marcus with a start. Sunlight streamed through the blinds he'd forgotten to close, and his neck ached from sleeping on the couch. The doorbell rang again. "Coming," he called, stumbling to his feet and checking the time. 9:17 a.m. He opened the door, blinking in confusion at the sight of Sarah Westfield standing in his hallway. Gone was the slightly disheveled woman from last night. This Sarah was immaculately dressed in dark jeans and a cashmere sweater, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, sunglasses perched on top of her head. "Ms. Westfield," he said, suddenly acutely aware of his rumpled t-shirt and bed head. "Is everything okay?" "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," she said, her professional demeanor firmly back in place. "May I come in?" "Of course." Marcus stepped aside, frantically scanning the apartment for embarrassing messes. The place wasn't fancy, but he kept it clean and organized, a necessity when raising a child alone. Sarah entered, her eyes taking in the modest living room with its well-worn furniture and walls covered in Lily's artwork. "Can I get you some coffee?" Marcus offered, running a hand through his hair in a futile attempt to tame it. "No, thank you. I won't stay long." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "I wanted to thank you for your help last night and to apologize for putting you in that position." "It's really not necessary." "It is," she interrupted. "I pride myself on professionalism, and I crossed a line. I also wanted to make sure that what happened stays between us." Marcus frowned. "Of course. I wouldn't." "Daddy?" Lily's small voice came from the hallway. She stood in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Who are you talking to?" "Good morning, sweetheart," Marcus said, crossing to lift her into his arms. "This is Ms. Westfield. She's Daddy's boss." Lily regarded Sarah with curious eyes. "You're pretty," she declared. A smile softened Sarah's face, transforming her features. "Thank you. You're pretty too. I like your pajamas." "They're unicorns," Lily informed her seriously. "They have magic powers." "The best kind," Sarah agreed. Marcus set Lily down. "Why don't you go brush your teeth while I talk to Ms. Westfield? Then we'll make pancakes." "With chocolate chips?" Lily asked hopefully. "We'll see." Once Lily had disappeared down the hall, Marcus turned back to Sarah. "Sorry about that." "Don't be. She's lovely." Sarah's eyes drifted to the refrigerator, covered in colorful drawings held up by alphabet magnets. "You're doing this all on your own?" The question caught him off guard. "Yes. My wife passed away 3 years ago." Sarah's expression softened. "I'm sorry. That must be incredibly difficult." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with her sympathy. "We manage. Lily's a great kid." Sarah nodded, then walked to the refrigerator, studying the drawings. She reached out to touch one, a crayon rendering of a man and a little girl holding hands under a rainbow. "Is this your daughter's drawing?" she asked quietly. The question hung in the air between them, and Marcus felt something shift in the atmosphere of his small kitchen. There was genuine interest in Sarah's voice, a softness he'd never heard at the office. "Yes," he answered. Lily draws a picture every day. That's her and me. Sarah traced the childish figures with her fingertip. She's talented. She wants to be an artist when she grows up. This week, anyway. Last week it was an astronaut veterinarian. Sarah laughed, a real laugh, not the polished social sound he'd heard at company functions. She turned to face him, and for the first time, Marcus saw past the CEO to the woman beneath. "I never thanked you properly," she said. "For taking care of me last night. Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head. "No, they wouldn't have. Most people would have called a car service and considered their duty done. You made sure I got home safely. You were kind." The way she said kind, as if it were a rare and precious commodity, made Marcus's heart twist. "I should go," she said, moving toward the door. "I've interrupted your Saturday enough." "You haven't interrupted anything," Marcus said, surprising himself with his honesty. "Lily and I were just going to make pancakes and maybe go to the park later if the weather holds." Sarah paused, her hand on the doorknob. "That sounds nice. You could join us," Marcus heard himself say. "For pancakes, I mean. If you want." The invitation hung between them, unexpected and potentially inappropriate given their professional relationship. Marcus was already formulating an apology when Sarah turned back to him, a genuine smile lighting her face. "I'd like that," she said softly. "I'd like that very much." The pancakes were slightly burned on one side and perfect on the other, the inevitable result of cooking while being helped by an enthusiastic 6-year-old. But Sarah didn't seem to mind as she sat at Marcus's small kitchen table, watching with fascination as Lily carefully arranged chocolate chips into a smiley face on her stack. "You have to make yours smile too," Lily instructed Sarah seriously. "It tastes better that way." "I can see that you're an expert," Sarah replied, accepting the bottle of syrup Lily handed her with solemn ceremony. Marcus watched the interaction with a mixture of amusement and bewilderment. The Sarah Westfield sitting at his table, chatting easily with his daughter, bore little resemblance to the intimidating executive who had once made the head of accounting cry during a budget meeting. "Daddy says you're the boss of everybody," Lily said, cutting her pancake into uneven pieces. Sarah glanced at Marcus with raised eyebrows. "Did he now?" Marcus felt his cheeks warm. "I said you're the CEO, which means you run the company." "That's right," Sarah confirmed. "I started the company 10 years ago." "All by yourself?" Lily asked, impressed. Something flickered across Sarah's face, a shadow of old pain, quickly masked. "Yes. All by myself." "That's brave," Lily declared. "Daddy says it's brave to do hard things even when you're scared." Sarah's eyes met Marcus's across the table. "Your daddy is a very wise man." The morning stretched into afternoon as they talked. Sarah asked Lily about school and her friends, listening with genuine interest to the rambling stories only a 6-year-old could tell. When Lily insisted on showing Sarah her room, Marcus followed, watching as his boss sat cross-legged on the floor while Lily introduced each of her stuffed animals by name. "This is Ellie," Lily said, holding up the well-loved elephant. "She was a present from my mommy before she went to heaven." Marcus tensed, waiting for the awkward moment that usually followed when Lily mentioned Dana to strangers. But Sarah simply took the elephant with gentle hands. "She's beautiful," Sarah said. "I can tell she's very special to you." Lily nodded solemnly. "She keeps the bad dreams away." "Everyone needs someone like that," Sarah said softly, handing the elephant back. Later, when Lily was occupied with her coloring books in the living room, Sarah helped Marcus clean up the kitchen. "Thank you for this," she said, drying a plate he handed her. "For including me." "Thank you for staying," he replied. "Lily doesn't